All right, and now let's talk about how to pair e-juices with your morning cup of coffee. So I've talked about how to pair e-juices with wines before. Now let's talk about pairing e-juices with coffee. Many of us enjoy a vape with our morning coffee. The two just go perfect together. So I decided to do a little bit of research and put this together to help you guys get the most out of your morning cup of coffee. So one of the first places to look is what coffee companies are already doing to flavor their coffees. Large coffee companies obviously know the industry best. They've had decades to figure out what flavor combinations that consumers like the best, and they probably have expert chefs and research and development teams working on different flavor pairings on a regular basis. Some of the most common popular coffee flavors include chocolates, and that includes things like fudge, dark chocolate, and cocoa, cinnamon, vanilla, caramel, mint, peppermint, toffee, hazelnut, and all of these often have combinations of nuts. That could be almond, macadamia nut, or pecans. And then there are some that aren't as common, but they are around, and that would be things like blueberry, raspberry, peanut butter cup, eggnog, graham cracker, and gingerbread. And now let's talk about creamers, because obviously, people add these creamers to their coffees. They must make good pairings. These are perfect examples of e-juice flavors that you can pair with your morning cup of coffee. Milk and cream, obviously, so anything creamy. Irish cream, pumpkin spice, nutmeg, French vanilla, vanilla caramel, chocolate caramel, caramel macchiato, and cinnamon vanilla. And then some more interesting flavors that I've seen were snickerdoodle, chocolate chip cookie, eggnog, caramel apple, chocolate raspberry, and cinnamon bun. And now let's talk liquors. So there are some people who do like to mix alcoholic beverages in with their coffee, not usually in the mornings, but vaping liquor flavored e-juice with coffee is a great way to start the morning without heading into work with a buzz. So some of the most popular are probably amaretto and Kahlua, but people do also like to mix in just straight alcohol, straight liquor like rum, bourbon, scotch, whiskey, tequila, and brandy. I'm not sure if I've ever seen a tequila flavored e-juice, but I don't know, there might be one out there. I have seen other liquor flavored e-juices, but I haven't tried any other than Castle Long from Five Ponds, which is like a Kentucky bourbon flavor. It's expensive, but it's a good and complex flavor if you like straight bourbon. And now dessert e-juices. So this is just common sense, right? People love to pair baked goods like cookies, cakes, and pastries with their coffees. So let's take a look at some of the popular options. You have chocolate cake, custard or lemon custard, apple pie, raspberry macarons, blueberry scones, tiramisu, cheesecake, chocolate strawberries, glazed donuts, pancakes, bread pudding, brownies, banana bread, chocolate, crumb cake, cookies, and ice cream. And I've seen all of these mentioned a lot of times on how to pair desserts with coffees. So these are very good examples, I think, of e-juices that you could pair with your coffee. And really, it kind of looks like any dessert flavored e-juice would pair well with coffee. And in reality, any dessert flavor probably would. But it looks like the best options are bakery and pastry flavors. The one exception would be ice cream. I've also heard that a small percentage of people actually like the flavors of Sambuca or anise with their coffee. So if you like to vape black licorice e-juice, that would probably also be a good choice to pair with your coffee. And now the tried and true tobacco and coffee. So like most smokers and former smokers, you probably remember the joy of having a smoke with your morning cup of coffee. So it makes sense that you'd want to pair your coffee with a tobacco flavored e-juice. And there are some great tobacco flavored e-juices on the market, many of which are more unique and intricate than you'd expect. RY4s, for example, they're my personal favorite. They're combinations of typically tobacco, vanilla, and caramel. They don't really taste a whole lot like tobacco, but they do have slight hints. Some of them do. There are also many variations of pipe tobacco flavored e-juices. Pipe tobaccos are very aromatic and much more complex than cigarette tobaccos. And you can find tobacco flavored e-juices with notes of cherry, vanilla, and peach. And something that seems to be growing in popularity are NET, or NET tobacco e-juices. That stands for naturally extracted tobacco. Extracted-tobacco.com is one popular e-juice manufacturer for NET e-juices. And another company that I've heard a lot about recently is called Black Note. I haven't tried them, but I've heard good things. They do tobaccos of all kinds. All right, so now we've already talked about a whole bunch of different flavors that pair well with coffee. But if you're a real coffee aficionado, you should consider pairing your flavors based on the body, boldness, and the roast of your coffee. So body refers to the heaviness or the mouthfeel of your coffee. The body is usually determined by the brewing method. For example, espresso machines and French presses will typically have a fuller body. And any brewing method that uses a paper filter, such as the everyday coffee machine, that will filter all the oils out of the coffee and will result in a lighter body. Fuller bodied coffees usually pair better with rich or creamy flavors like dark chocolates, cheesecakes, and pecan pie. Lighter bodied coffees would pair well with fruit, cookies, and meringue pie. Now let's talk about roasts. So this is a lot like you'd expect. Dark roasts, they usually complement rich and creamy flavors, while light roasts complement lighter flavors like fruits and cookies. Medium roasts tend to pair well with things like chocolates, nuts, and earthy flavors. And finally, also consider the notes of the coffee that you're drinking. For example, if your coffee has hints of cherry, we know that cherries go well with cheesecake and tiramisu. So these would be great e-juices to pair with your morning coffee if your coffee has cherry hints. Okay, so if you're a coffee drinker, which you should be because coffee and caffeine are amazing, but these tips should help you find some great e-juice flavors to pair with your cup of coffee in the morning. I actually used to be a bit of a coffee snob, sort of, not entirely. I wouldn't mind a crappy cup of coffee occasionally, but a few years ago, I really got into coffee making as a sort of a hobby. So I went out and bought a burr grinder so that I could make sure that the coffee grounds were ground very well, not like a blade grinder. I would only drink organic and freshly roasted coffee, and I own a bunch of different coffee makers, like a French press, a mocha pot, a couple of pour-over coffee makers, an AeroPress, a Turkish coffee pot, and probably some other things that I can't think of right now. And I still prefer high-quality coffee over coffee machine coffee any day, but I'm not very picky these days. Hell, I'll drink the cold leftover coffee that my wife leaves in the machine when I get home from work.